Welcome to Gen Weekly, a weekly broadcast of the Global Engagement Network Media Co-op. No scripts, no corporate influence. Talk about issues, trends, stories, and headlines from the previous week. Don't just talk. Don't just watch, engage.
Hey everyone. I'll go ahead.
Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, we're stumbling a little bit. That's all right. It's Gen Weekly, episode 5, January 31st. Oh, January 31st. Wow. Our slides are way off. It is February 7th, everyone, and welcome to Gen Weekly. We have all sorts of great topics today. We're going to be going through our civil rights, talking about a little bit of that. That's our monthly co-op will be on civil rights, and you can always look at the end of the show to see what our other future monthly topics will be. We'll also do a quick co-op description and discussion as we always do. We'll go through a little bit of church and state, the Johnson Amendment, and what Trump's said about that recently. We're going to go into civil rights and look at a little bit of history, and then we're going to go into Super Bowl commercials and the political spin that we saw in them, and then we'll go through some quick announcements, like I said, and we will be closing after that. Before we'll start, as always, with co-op, so I'll give it back to John there, and we'll get started talking about that a little bit.
Sure. And so just a little bit of a reminder from last week in terms of what a cooperative is. A cooperative exists for the mutual benefits of its members. We are a member-owned media cooperative, and our production and distribution model is for micro-content and social broadcasting. So micro-content, again, essentially means we will work with you to amplify your message, reach your audience, and show you how to take engagement to the next level, whether that's by integrating Twitter feeds into your programming or integrating YouTube chat rooms, which you'll see later on today, and helping people that want to do social broadcasting or that want to do broadcasting like this, helping you set up and have the best possible experience in order to hit the ground running. So we are looking forward to working with all of you to help you create your media needs for whatever activities that you're working on. We have Ernest here tonight. Ernest, how are you?
Pretty good. How's everybody doing tonight?
Good, good. Why don't you give us a little bit of an example on a co-op that you're working on right now that you talked with us about before we started?
Sure. Currently I'm working down here in Northwest Arkansas with folks along the Diamond Pipeline and the resistance of the Diamond Pipeline that goes from Cushing, Oklahoma to Memphis, Tennessee. And one of the ideas that we're tossing around and that I'm trying to move forward is basically a bus cooperative. And one of the things I hope this bus does is provide quite a bit of surveillance and micro content for the Global Engagement Network. But we're basically organizing much like a tool cooperative, like a bunch of people that might share tools in a garage in their community. But in this case, the set of tools are all on a bus. So we basically have 9 shares available at $500 a share, and those 9 people all get 1 vote and decide what the schedule is for the bus, and we can visit direct actions and community events and help raise awareness of the dangers of fossil fuels out here.
Cool. And what stage are you at right now? How can people that are watching help or get involved?
Currently it's in the drafting stage. So anybody that's interested in watching that kind of unfold can do so through my YouTube channel, and which is Ernest of Gaia. And basically I do video updates along with shareable Google Docs for the drafting of the bylaws and whatnot. And then also I kind of keep all the important links for the documentation in the description of the show notes on the YouTube channel. So right now that's the best way, and then if other people have questions about it or how I can help them do it in their community, then I'm usually available.
Okay, cool. So, and it's Ernest of Gaia on YouTube.
That's great. I hope it works out really well, and I hope it catches on too. This is the kind of thing we need, tool sharing in all different kinds of ways.
Yeah, it's really neat too because out here it's a little different than Standing Rock, where everything's kind of focused at one geographical location. Most of this pipeline isn't in the ground. So for right now, raising awareness, having some kind of mobile option ends up being pretty good.
Cool.
And what is your Twitter handle? Are you on Twitter at all, Ernest?
Lotus Dog.
All right, awesome.
LOTUSDOG. Yep.
All right. We appreciate that. So that is Ernest, and if you are interested in that cooperative, please find him on YouTube. And very good with Google Documents and helping draft language for putting together cooperatives, and a great resource for us so far already as the Global Engagement Network. So we appreciate you being here.
Well, it's been fun working with you guys.
Cool. Thanks.
Awesome.
It's been fun working with all of you. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, Sean. So
Yeah.
let's get into it. What's our first topic?
Well,
Or should we go through the agenda?
Yeah. Well, this is we'll start here on slide 4. Yeah. So lots of things have been being said, and so it's hard to keep up with all of them. But one that I wanted to point out that the Trump administration is going after is recently they vowed to destroy the 1954 Johnson Amendment, which stops churches and other tax-exempt organizations from, quote, directly or indirectly in participating in or intervening in any political campaign on behalf or in opposition to any candidate for elective public office. Now, this alone isn't the only thing the Trump administration is going after. Of course, they white evangelical Protestants have for a long time been going after this amendment, but they've never been able to really get up any kind of momentum. They're also trying to, there's a sweeping religious, freedom executive orders that they're doing. They're doing one that's going to be, that's going to go after other things more broadly, but this one specifically would create exemptions for people and organizations who claim religious objections to same-sex marriage, premarital sex, abortions, and trans identity. So this would, I believe, I could be wrong, this would help cases like Hobby Lobby and those sort of things. So this is a giant step towards corporations being able to, because really that's what it is. I look at a church as a corporation that's tax exempt, and that gives them even more financial freedom when it comes to how they're making their money. And for them to be able to do whatever they want with it, basically, if they're being held to the same standards as people that have to pay taxes, is that fair? And that's not even looking at the fact that, our founding fathers wanted a separation of the church and state. So this is just one of the sweeping things that Trump's going to try and do. Now, nothing official has happened, but he has, again, vowed to, quote, destroy this Johnson Amendment that goes back to 54. So we'll just have to look and, see what measures they do to take that forward.
Can I start a church?
Right, exactly. Well, and that's the thing is this is not just churches, so.
But it's also churches, but it also says and other tax-exempt organizations. So I don't necessarily look at churches as corporations. I do look at them as organizations.
Right.
And I also think if you listen to the language, it opens the door for other nonprofit organizations who maybe be working on environmental issues to put their money where their mouth is and also fundraise for candidates. So
definitely.
I'm here nor there really on that, because I think that they're making it very clear that money is power, and it's also put up or shut up. So with those laws, there's ways around it, and there's ways to reorganize.
I think they
That's
need
true.
to take money out of politics myself, and I think this is a step in the wrong direction. But we already have unfettered capitalistic contributions to political candidates. So.
Well, the thing with the megachurch is that, sorry,
No, go
I'm just
ahead.
saying, the things with the megachurches that kind of rubs me the wrong way is it goes beyond that. And that's the fact that they're out there getting money in the name of God, in the name of God, in the name of good, in the name of their church, in the name of helping their community. And then they're able to take it and turn around and use it in what I can see as against the best interest of the people who gave them that money. Now, you could look at some progressive entity that's going to be able to do the same thing, and you could argue that they're doing the same thing with their followers' money. They're telling them what they want to hear and then going and doing whatever they want with it. But there seems to be something a little more sinister when you're playing off of people's ideological base to get that money as a nonprofit who's mere or as tax exempt, organization or entity that is obviously tax exemption, right? It's because they're not like John said, they're not technically an organization, even though they're making money by selling faith, by selling hope, by selling God, in my opinion. But officially, they're not an organization, and so yeah, it does create this gray area. And I agree that it also is definitely a wrong step when it comes to getting money out of politics. It's only furthering special interests' strengths, right? So yeah, it's definitely something that people in that realm will look for, trying to stomp out. And then Gorsuch, as on the Supreme Court, has its own, money and politics things that we'll get into on another episode. So, any closing thoughts on this one? No?
I think
Yeah, go ahead.
I know one very large organization, Harvard University, which, because it's a university, is tax exempt, and it is a multi-billion-dollar industry surrounded by poverty, and very disconnected from the community. And the same is true of Yale and a lot of other private institutions.
That's a good point.
So, my question always comes back to, well, what institutions in my community does this really affect? And does it continue to centralize power and authority and money in one direction? And if that's what it does, then we got to find alternatives.
And let's not forget, I think that's a good point too. And let's not forget that corporations are basically tax exempt entities themselves. With all the tax breaks that they get, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, that's true.
So yeah.
That's a very good point. Yeah, that's a good point, that we've gotten to a point where we're so, that our politicians are so friendly with our corporations that they're getting, all sorts of favors back and forth. And it basically creates this almost tax exempt status. Yeah, that's that's probably why our president hasn't released his tax release forms yet. He obviously doesn't want us to see something in there, and it's probably, he's bragged about it. So it's kind of weird. It's like you're bragging about how little you paid in taxes, and yet you're still not willing to release them. So he's also really good at just getting people to talk about that kind of shit instead of the detrimental stuff he's doing to the country. So it could just be a ploy in trying to get the media to talk about a straw man, essentially. So.
Yeah, diversion tactics.
Yeah. Well, moving on to, go ahead, briefly.
Oh, yeah, I was just say quickly, it's a really good opportunity to discuss the difference between like regressive and progressive taxes. The question is, why does every American have to pay property taxes, but then organizations and corporations in particular get excluded from paying property taxes at the proportion that the average citizen does? And so when you have those kind of taxes or tax laws that shift the burden to the individual away from the corporations to have the larger impacts in society, it's just part of looking at, well, what does this really mean and what's it really going to do? And I think that's what we'll find, is that most of Trump's policies are going to continue to shift the burden to the individual when it's the corporations making the mess.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, that and that's all kind of just plays into the oligarchy that we kind of created, hasn't it? Right. I mean, there's just so many ways that we've either given up control or we've seen it cross hands between, people that don't have our best interests. Yeah. So. All right. Well, moving on to the next slide, we'll go to Allison to introduce us to it.
Yeah, so over the weekend we had, of course, the Super Bowl. The Patriots won. Patriots happen to be Trump's favorite team. And he's got some fans on the team, as many of us know, including people behind the scenes and people on the field. It's interesting that they played in a city that accepts more refugees than anywhere else in the U.S. And in that city, they had massive protests at the airport and against him on the inauguration day. We also noticed some commercials during the Super Bowl, which are infamous. Tons of money, tons of thought, tons of energy goes into producing these commercials. So it's interesting to notice some of the themes coming out. We had Progress is for Everyone, which is supposed to be like a feminist ad for the Audi automobile. So the ironies are kind of rampant there. So you can empower, I guess, your daughter by making sure she's got her own car. I don't know. I don't know where it's going there, but people seem to want to put on a good face. These corporations want to put on a good face, and they're trying to appeal to something in people. For example, Budweiser put out an ad just sort of tracing their own roots as having a background in being an immigrant, coming to a new country, being discriminated against, being oppressed somewhat. So they're trying to play on the, hey, we're in solidarity with immigrants, especially in this day and age of Trump doing Muslim ban on 7 Muslim majority countries. Also, we had, speaking of civil rights, we had Ford, which put out an ad that uses, I wish I knew how it would feel to be free. This is, it's a civil rights anthem that became famous by being recorded by the High Priestess of Soul herself, Nina Simone. It was played at protests. She did concerts. She was very active. It was one of Martin Luther King's favorite songs. And now we see it in a Ford ad where people are having little annoyances, like they can't get their zipper up on their prom dress, or they're stuck on a ski lift somewhere, just your everyday problems. And that's how they're using the civil rights anthem now, is to sling a product by trying to tell you, hey, we've got the technology and the power to make you feel, amongst many other sports players apparently, to visit the White House. Yeah, so did you guys notice anything? We also had Lady Gaga, who did the halftime presentation, the performance. I think it was last year, the year before, we saw Beyonce do the Black Power salute, and giving props to the Black Lives Matter movement. This year we saw Lady Gaga. She was singing one of the American, what is it called? The America the Beautiful, and then she switches it to This Land Is Your Land, which is also a protest song, saying this land belongs to all of us. Did you guys have any thoughts about any of the commercials you saw? What were your thoughts?
First, I've wondered, does anyone know why? I mean, I know Roger Goodell there's lots of reasons not to like him, but he was booed when he was speaking before handing off the trophy. Does anyone know particularly why he was being booed? Was it because of where they were, the city, or was there another reason particularly, or just is he just generally disliked?
Just defeat.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. All right. Well, so I was just wondering, because there was lots of different angles to this, and we mentioned the Budweiser commercial. One side I saw of that was the idea that they were playing up a little more than is true. The idea that they pulled themselves up from their bootstraps, and so they were they maybe almost glamorized it a little more than their actual story was. I guess he was a German, one of them, I believe it was Anheuser, was a German immigrant. So he was he was a middle class when most German immigrants, like most German immigrants. And so he wasn't really living that same life that others were, that like it was depicted in the commercial. So the question that came up to me was, how okay are we with the, obviously they're trying to save face, they're trying to end up on the right side of history. I mean, obviously you don't want to just completely demonize people for this, because obviously it's better than being on the opposite side. But I mean, you got to take it with a grain of sand at least, because, obviously they're not completely, they could have done this ad 2 years ago and it would have made even more of a difference, because it would have been like, damn, they're really taking a stand. Now it's kind of bandwagon jumping in a way, right?
I think so. I think that what we're seeing is the commodification of dissent. They're trying to make an extra buck on something that's sort of seeping into the mainstream. And I think that in for example, in the Budweiser ad, I think that the message is kind of like, hey, we can all have access to the American dream if we just work hard enough, sort of like that, those Nazi signs at the camps, work hard enough and we'll set you free. Pull yourself up enough by the bootstraps and you too can become an exploiter instead of the exploited. It's a zero-sum game. And I think that, these corporations, it's publicity for them. And even if there is some good intent behind it, and even if, maybe it means something to some people, I think that they are not going to threaten their bottom line. Corporations benefit from tax havens, tax breaks. They have a free flow of capital across the globe, but there's not a free flow for human beings who are trying to escape intolerable conditions. And also, I think that we have something in our society that tells us, look, you too have the power of choice. You can choose any healthcare you want. And you can make yourself feel like you're a dissenter too if you just buy our product. If you buy this cup of Starbucks coffee, 0.00001 cent will go to this charitable organization. So these are the choices that we have. I think that those are not real choices. And if there's really people who are trying to disrupt the balance of power and trying to make things equal for everyone in a real way, what these corporations are doing is they're tokenizing. And I think they're tokenizing, and I think that they're trying to exploit some things that are pumping into the mainstream, such as dissent against Trump.
Yeah, it begins to come off disingenuous, which is a problem, because when someone is being serious and has maybe even a history, someone 2 years ago started talking about it and we just now see him come up, we might be wanting to lump them in with the others. So this is, again, as much as we dislike it online, it pays to follow the money and to look at someone's history of who they sold ad time to and that sort of thing. And you're seeing that even more off of the Super Bowl. I've been hearing stories that people are disengaging from the upcoming, the official dinner with the press that they do every year. I'm doing a mind blank on the name of it, but press outlets are already saying, well, this isn't the year for that. Things are different, and we're not going to go in there and act like everything's cool when we're being demonized like never before by this administration. So this is just another way in which I think people are starting to stand up for and hopefully the tokenism doesn't get lost, and it at least just fuels people to do more, because it is easy just to say, oh, I'm going to buy the Audi and I'm going to like a couple Facebook posts and I've done my part.
Yeah, exactly.
And, so yeah.
I think we run the risk sometimes of doing something easy that we can pat ourselves on the back quickly after, but that won't actually make real change. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's I think I saw a headline today where over 100 companies are standing up against the Muslim ban, as well as former secretaries of state, I believe it is. So it's interesting that, but yeah, it does call into question what about all of the bombing that we're engaging in across the globe against people from these countries? It'd be nice to see some more resistance against that.
Yeah, that's something we'll have to touch upon because that recently came into the news. The first of unfortunately will be many raids, and there was collateral damage, and there was collateral damage under Obama, but they at least said, yeah, God, that sucks, gosh. Whereas Trump administration apparently is saying, screw it. I mean, you got to do what you got to do, right? And so it's same result, but a very different way of painting it. And I don't know if that makes it any better. I don't really think it does, but it's interesting to note that. And so we'll be definitely touching upon that in the future. John, anything to add to this topic before we go on, or anyone else? No? All right. Okay. All right, well, next topic is civil rights based. It is Civil Rights Month at the Global Engagement Network, and that will be our Gen Monthly topic as well. This week, I just wanted to touch upon something I heard while listening to one of my favorite podcasts, which is Hidden Brain. They had, it was titled Remembering Anarcha, Lucy, and Betsy, the Mothers of Modern Gynecology. I thought this was very interesting as far as civil rights go, just by the basic fact that talking to some people I know that are of a conservative persuasion, or at least not super up on progressive and ideals and history, they always want to say stuff like, it seems like it's hard they don't want to compare their struggles to the struggle of the black person. They don't want to, it's hard to compare their life growing up and see it as being any easier or harder. It's almost like it when it comes to privilege. It's hard to see your privilege when you haven't lived your life knowing it was there. And so when you say to someone, hey, when someone says, oh, black people are lazy, or look at Latinos and what their problems are, and like they start comparing different races and that sort of thing, you want to say, hey, look, their great-great-grandfather didn't have the same things. They both might have been poor, but the white migration out of cities in the early 20th century and all this stuff happened. It affected communities, and it affected communities of color, and we've been doing things in all corners of the country and in all parts of politics and civil life that made it harder for those families and those communities to prosper. And lots of times it was at the expense of whites. So this particular anecdote is that the father of modern psychology, which was John Marion Sims, was revered in some ways because he made a lot of scientific or medical breakthroughs that were big and actually ended up saving a lot of people's lives, because you build on what other people know. But it's the way he got there that kind of shows this systematic racism that we tend to have from a very, very long time ago. So basically the story goes that to learn how to do these certain things, I won't go into the medical jargon, but there was a specific problem that some women were having. Yes.
Just so you know, you said psychology, and that is not the word at all on the slide. No. I don't want people to be scared.
No. Yes.
Is that what they call a Freudian slip?
Maybe. Sure. Yeah. So anyways, yeah. So he
this is gynecology, folks.
Gynecology, yeah. So
not psychology.
He back in it was in the late or mid 1800s, he actually bought slaves to do surgeries on. And some of these surgeries involved when you get abrasions on certain sexual organs, and it stops you from being able to create offspring, amongst other things. Well, apparently this was a problem for some landowners, and because they weren't able to get offspring and enslave these new kids, right? And of course, this was something that was happening to other people other than black women. This was happening to white women. So he would buy slaves, do practice these medical procedures on them without anesthesia, not out of some, not trying to hurt them or wanting to cause them pain, but through the fact that actually they were thought to need less or feel less pain than a white woman. And so right then and there, you're already having preconceived, bigoted ideas about differences in race coming through in this, practice. So anyways, he has these slaves, he's doing these operations, then he's taking what he's perfected on these black slaves, and then he's going to white women and using anesthesia and, obviously furthering his practice that way. But the idea is that modern psychology was built on the back of slaves, specifically these 3 that he wrote about in his journals. And so they're now referred to as the mothers of gynecology, because they obviously sacrificed so much against their consent. And obviously modern science, has a lot to owe them, and in a way sins as well. But it's just a very interesting dynamic, and just shows you all the different ways that you don't think about, racism playing, playing a role in our history of this country. And, from prisons to, modern, laws in different states. I mean, all sorts of things you can look at and say, hey, look, that came from way back in the day when we were trying to discriminate against blacks, and we are still just trying to figure out ways other than, slavery to do it. So it wasn't the most articulate slide for me, but I think it's a very, very important and very interesting topic, and another viewpoint into, this problem our country is facing, that's out in the open more than ever. It seems to be talked more openly now than any time I've been alive, at least. So.
Wow, thanks for sharing that, Sean.
Yeah, really. Is that a hyperlink on the slideshow?
Yeah. If you want to,
for people that are going to look at the slides later.
Absolutely, that is to the podcast episode, and they do a great job. They have some great interviews, and they do a really good job of narrating the story, much better than I can do here. So definitely check that out. It's worth the listen.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean. Anyone else on his story?
No, I mean, I didn't know that story, and just the more you find out, the more you realize what's in the history is pretty shameful.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And you can see, they built a statue for him, and so you'll hear at the end of the podcast a great sentiment, a very, very poetic way of expressing the want for statues of these 3 women to be placed there and have them be much bigger than the statue of Miriam Sims, because they're, the role they played was much bigger than his in many ways. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, making whatever crossover we can from that to our upcoming things for Global Engagement Network. We're always trying to keep busy and create new content. Every Gen Weekly, of course, you're watching that now. That's every Tuesday on YouTube. Gen Monthly is a special monthly conference, video conference that we do with a special topic every month. This month will be civil rights. So there'll be special guests, interactive small group brainstorms, and action planning for the future.
I'm showing everybody our new Gen Monthly conference logo, or at least it was created today by Heather.
Yeah, we're very excited to have some new volunteers on board helping us out where we needed. It's very much needed, so we appreciate that. Of course,
they're not
Seattle.
They're co-op members.
Co-op members, okay, yeah, officially. But yeah, so just keep checking us out. Make sure to subscribe online and all that good stuff. And our next slide we'll check out before we get out of here will be just a quick look at what we come up in the following months of the year. And that's slide 8. We've got civil rights this month. Water and its protectors will be in March, which is very, very important. And April will be healthcare. May we have art, anarchism, and activism, which will be a fun month. June, LGBTQ history, rights, and the movement, and it goes on. You can always check our show notes for the slides and take a look there. And of course, follow us on Twitter and subscribe to our YouTube, and you'll be able to see updates there. And hopefully, we'll be getting the website on. I don't know. Does anyone have any updates about ETA on that?
No updates on the ETA, but I did see that a backup was posted. So I think really it's just a matter of finding another skin and getting it up.
All right, cool. So we're going to get that up as fast as possible, and that is a great way to sign up for our email, or our newsletter rather, and that of course will have all of our content and some stories and a look forward for events that we'll be doing in the future. So always sign up for that when able. Anything else before we get out of here, John?
Subscribe to Jen on YouTube.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming and joining us and engaging in the conversation.
Allison, and Sean.
No problem.
Great job tonight.
Thanks, everyone. Happy birthday, Ernest.
Happy birthday.
Today's your birthday?
I don't know.
Awesome.
I would have had a preloaded cake emoji if I'd have known that, man.
No, that's quite all right.
Well,
now he's glad I didn't mention it.
Yeah.
Fake cake. Fake cake. Thanks, everyone, for joining us, and we hope to hear more from you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Don't just watch. Engage.